Hey folks, had someone ask me about the Evergrand situation, and seems to be a lot of confusion out there. They're in New York court filing for Chapter 15 protection, which is international debt restructuring and all that. I'm not going to get into it because I want to make this quick. The thing you need to be aware of is only about 19 to 20 trillion or billion dollars of the 300 billion is in Western asset or Western investors' risk portfolios. So that's really what we need to be consciously aware of. China is going to have to deal with the 92 to 3% of the problem, 95%, whatever, of the $300 billion in their own nation and their own investors. And that's what you need to know. Now, why are they in America for such a small amount filing Chapter 15? Because there are assets in the U.S. worth more that could be seized, okay, to shore or to backstop this debt. So they just can't default on the debt, or they can, but the risk of losing more is there as well. International law with regards to finance has a lot of legal jargon in it, as you know. And who writes those laws? You got it: the wealthy, the rich, all of that. So, hence why Evergrand is here filing Chapter 15. Which, if you want to take a deep dive in that, go ahead. You should know it anyway, so that you are consciously aware of how all this stuff works. But the reality of it is, it's only about 19 to 20 billion dollars out of the 300 billion that Evergrand is about to topple. Remember, the U.S. investors were told get out of China. So if you stayed in there, it's on you. So our risk to Evergrand is not that great. So don't panic and worry about it. Always be prepared, right? But the main point of this whole video is less than 10% of that debt is exposed to Western investors and countries. Now, there are some privateers who may have more invested, but that's all that I'm concerned with. And if they lose their money, that's on them, okay? And I don't really care. Because if you weren't smart enough to get out of there a while ago, I don't know what to tell you. But why are big corporations in there like BlackRock? Why are they involved in this? Because they have access to other assets that may be worth more than the bonds that they invested in, that by law they could possibly seize. And those assets are in the U.S. Okay? So there's a big game afoot here. Hence why Evergrand is in court. And there's a lot of knowledge that needs to be gained to fully understand the game afoot. That's what I wanted to get across on this video. Am I concerned about Evergrand? On a global scale, yes, because it could start the dominoes falling. But I'm more concerned about how China's going to deal with what's coming for them. And that will tell us a lot as global people, as preppers, of all of that. That will tell us a lot in the financial world as well as our preparedness world, what to do. And China only has two ways to go right now. And which direction China chooses is going to determine how a lot of this plays out. And that has to do with the Chinese government, right? So Evergrand, to me, is not that big a deal. It is for the Chinese people. As a result of this, last week, Chinese investors lost $400 billion, just disappeared out of their retirement portfolios and their investment portfolios and their savings. So while this may be a concern to you, have some empathy for what's going on to the people of China who have worked hard, invested, and believed the propaganda and what's happening to them. And that's another thing I want to get out. I'll do a separate video on China and what I think is going to go down. We don't know. Chinese government isn't all that bright, in my opinion, in many ways. But they will do what they do. And whatever choice they make will determine what we need to do. And I will do another video when the choice is made. That's why I haven't been doing financial videos. I really don't care about any of this until the bomb finally goes off. I went to 90% cash a long time ago. You all know that. There's a reason I did it. We need to see what happens before we can get back in the game. And too many governments have to make decisions before we know what game is afoot. Okay? And what's rule number 1? Don't lose money. Rule number 2, refer to rule number 1. And if you don't know what the game is, you might not want to play it. And I don't know what the game is until they make their decisions. And right now, it's a huge decision on the government of China as to how they're going to play this. And whichever decision they make is going to be a huge factor for all of us, okay? Because it's going to send effects through the global markets. Either way, it doesn't matter what decision they make. It's going to affect global markets, okay? And it could affect the Chinese worse, depending on the decisions they make. And I'll do separate videos on that. But right now, what's Evergrand exposure to the West? About $20 billion out of $300 billion. So where's the big problem? It's in China. Who's getting hurt right now? The Chinese people, just like the Western people got hurt in 2008. With all that debacle, how many people lost their homes? Their retirement portfolios collapsed, all of that stuff, right? So, but I think the Chinese people, if they don't absolutely lose their money, like in bankruptcies, will, if the world holds together and we don't wind up in World War III, like 2008 here in the U.S., the Chinese investors hopefully will be able to recover over time. However, we just don't know how this is going to go. There's too many things going on in the world. I'll do a separate video on that, but don't worry about Evergrand. It's not that big a deal to the West, really. It's a big deal on how the Chinese government reacts to it, but it's not that big a deal from a monetary perspective here in the West. It's really not. And New York is just all a game to protect other assets. Really, I know it's hard to understand that, but trust me, if you know about financial law and all that stuff, you know already what's going on. And it's big players bouncing things around. And these big players don't lose money. They take other crap. Hope you're all doing well. Hope life's treating you good. Jim out.